Okay, so we're just going to give you a bit of information here about how to fit a set of Blue Pegasus polyurethane horseshoes. Now this is the fit kit that you'll get from Blue Pegasus. It contains a few different sizes of shoes. As you can see, the first two I've put on really don't fit very well, a bit small. This one's getting closer, doesn't cover the quarters, and that's the shoe we would choose for this particular horse. Good coverage all the way around. Now the toolkit you need is pretty basic. You just need a driving hammer, a felt tip marker, which I will explain a bit later, a clincher, a sharp rasp, a pair of nips, and a nail punch. Now, a nail punch from Blue Pegasus is a pretty handy tool. Now nails, you can use a BH or an E-head. I prefer the E-heads, and that's an E5. An E4 or a BH4 is fine as well. The 5s just generally have a bit more grab to them. Now trimming the hoof is probably a little bit different to maybe what you're used to if you've been used to nailing on steel shoes, as polyurethane shoe loads on the sole more so than the wall. In fact, 90% of the loading done from a polyurethane shoe is through the sole and not on the wall. So we trim the hoof accordingly. We don't need to leave copious amounts of wall to hang the shoe off. We pretty much level it up with the sole plane. That's how the shoe requires to load on the hoof. It's a particularly dry hoof when we shot this video. It's very dry, hard hoof. It doesn't really require a whole bunch of nipping. It's in pretty good shape. So when we're rasping across the heels, we just want to make sure that we don't take the heels down below frog height. The polyurethane shoes don't really work terribly well if you're taking your heels down below the frog. So just keep your heels in line with the frog. A nice straight line across there. You can see I've shown the seed of corn there, so I've got a good marker up the back, and I've also exposed the live sole plane at the toe, but I haven't invaded it at all. Very important not to invade the live sole. We need as much sole as we can get on all our horses, and particularly with the polyurethanes, because that's where they load. So I'm just going to scoop out the quarters a little bit here as well. I find that if I scoop out the quarters, I eliminate a lot of flaring issues. The hoof does not need to be dead flat to apply a polyurethane shoe, although you can do it dead flat if you like. I prefer to put a little bit of scoop in the hooves. It just eliminates flaring in the long run. Now, some of you might look at the way I'm attacking the outer wall here thinking, what you're doing? Well, you don't need the outer wall when you're applying a polyurethane shoe. It's really not necessary, as the shoe loads mostly on the sole and inner wall of the horse, so I like to remove all my outer wall and roll it away like so, and what that does is also decrease the risk of flaring and long toes and all those other nasty problems that come from having a long hoof. So I remove all my outer wall but leave the inner wall alone. You can go through the inner wall toward the white line at the toe if you need to bring a toe back, as the polyurethane shoe is made to load on the sole and not the wall. That's fine if you want to do that. This horse, although ever so slightly long in the toe, I don't feel it necessary at this point to take the toe back any shorter than that. And we've still got a little bit of inner wall left at the toe there, and the rest of the outer wall is just rolled away all around the hoof, which is a pretty standard trim for the polyurethane shoes, and I've been doing that sort of trim on horses for these shoes for quite some time with pretty good success. Now we take away a little bit of the dags around the bars. Again, important not to invade any live sole. We're just tidying them up because we won't see them again for another 4 weeks. So no point in letting them overgrow. So we'll just tidy them up down to the sole plane, but not go any further. Now out the front here, I see very little point in dressing the hoof high. All I need to do here is continue the roll that I put on from underneath. So I'm just going to tidy that up a bit and remove any external loading forces that might want to grab a hold of that outer wall and cause flaring issues, seedy toe and all those sort of things that you get from having a long hoof. So you can see this horse has been following this trim protocol for quite some time now, and there are no flaring problems. He doesn't particularly have a long toe. Everything looking pretty good, so the trim's working very well for this horse. He's also been in these shoes for quite some time, and that's about that. Now back underneath, you'll have to think about driving some nails. So if you're a little bit cautious about driving nails, or you don't have much experience in driving nails, that's where your felt tip marker is going to come into use. So you take your marker and you mark the white line. Just put a pen mark around the white line where you're going to drive your nails, and you'll be able to see that line clearly through the polyurethane shoe. It's a great guide for those inexperienced about driving nails. Now I've chosen the shoe size there to fit that horse, but I do not want the toe clip on it. The toe clip would slow down the breakover of this horse. I'd like a faster breakover, so I'm removing that toe clip, just nip it off, and I'll use the side clips instead. Now the side clips will rest nicely on the wall of that horse. There's no need to set them in. Just rest them against the outside, that's all that's required. You don't need to set in the toe clips on the polyurethane shoes. So I've taken my E5 nail and basically just started nailing. You can see the black mark should you need to through the shoe. Use that as your guide. A couple of taps, get it touching the white line, and then off you go. Obviously the shoe does not come with any pre-drilled nail holes, but you can, if you would like, pre-drill some holes in yourself. If you think it's going to be a little easier for you, then by all means drill some holes in the shoes, but the shoes are actually quite easy to drive a nail through. They have a similar density to hoof wall, I suppose, so just drive straight through any of the grades, the soft, medium or the hard. They're all quite simple and easy to drive your nail straight through. Now pitching your nails, well, you'll have to decide on how to pitch your nails. Personally, if I follow this type of trim, I find I don't really need to pitch my nails. I'm basically just driving my nails straight because I've got plenty of hoof wall up top to grab a hold of the nail. Obviously, different hooves require different approaches, and you might need to pitch your nails differently for different hooves, but you'll get the hang of that as you do it a few more times. Now, I've used 6 nails in this hook. You don't need 6, but I'm just using 6 for demonstration purposes. So once you've got all your nails in, it's time to punch them down. This is a really important part. You need to countersink the nail heads below the level of the shoe. So the nail punch has a flange on the side of it, which stops you from punching them too far. It tells you how far you've gone in, and that's about right. So give them a couple of good whacks and just countersink them down a bit. Very important that stops a lot of shear forces on the nails. Now you need to clinch them here. Normally with a steel shoe you'd probably do that with a buffer or similar. Buffer doesn't really work too well with the polyurethane, so I just give them a little half clinch with a clinching tool to start the clinching process. Okay, so we get the hoof back out front, and really now it's just a matter of snipping off the extra bits of nail that you don't need. So I like to leave about 3 millimeters of nail or so. You don't really need any more than that, but you don't want too much hanging up there. It just gets a bit ugly and it's really unnecessary. So leave about 3 mil. I just like to put a little nick underneath the nails with the edge of my rasp. You can use a gouge if you like, but I find the edge of the rasp is quite useful for that. It just allows the clinches to look a little bit neater, and also allows the first bend of the clinches to happen that little bit easier. And when you get your nail punch, you'll also come with a clinch adapter tool, and that's the tool there. If you're nervous about clinching nails, then you can use it. I personally don't use it very often. I find they clinch just fine. You'll see how I clinch here. There's sort of a double motion in it because you don't want to push the nail back through the shoe, so it's a little bend over and then a clinch. You'll see it again. It's the first bend and then the clinch, and that just stops your nail poking back through the shoe. Now when you tidy up the top of your clinches, you don't rasp them right off like you would say with a steel shoe. It's important to leave a lot of clinch there because there's a lot more shear forces on the nails, so you need to do some bite. And there I'm just setting the breakover of the shoe, just rasping back the shoe to the position I would like the breakover to be on this hook. A little bit of a tidy up of the nail heads again, and that's about that. Now, pretty important as well to remove any excess shoe that's hanging over the back of the hook. A couple of reasons for this. One is it's an overreach hazard. If the horse does have a habit of overreaching or takes the occasional overreach, then he could possibly stand on the back of the shoe. So as you can see, it only takes a couple of seconds to nip off any extra shoe. Another reason is you don't want the horse landing too early, so try and tidy it up and finish it up at the back of the heels. So you can just rasp them off a little bit there. The shoes are easy to rasp with a sharp rasp, and make sure you leave about 3mm or so of shoe around the entire hoof, because the shoes are very flexible. Will flex on all planes, so you need that little bit of extra to cope with the amount of flex the shoes will give you. Once you've tidied them up, that's about it. Job done.